Hello and welcome to the live stream. Today we are talking about productivity, one of my favorite topics. It can be a dangerous one though, because you can spend too much time on productivity as opposed to actually getting stuff done, if that makes sense. Today we're going to be talking then about a number of tools that I use, and I've made several videos about this in the past, but it's something that I've been getting asked about a lot recently, just with the start of the Take One Tech Academy. A number of Academy members have been starting to implement some of these things and then asking me about various different aspects of it. So I thought it was worth revisiting, and to be honest, this live stream could be a 24-hour live stream because there's just so much that could be covered in it. But what I will be talking about is specifically Stream Deck being the sort of hub of a lot of this, and then that coupled with Keyboard Maestro, which is one of my main productivity and automation tool, and then also some other tools that I use with that, including Moom for organizing my screen and getting everything where I need it to be for whatever I'm happen to be doing on a given day or at a given moment. And then also Hazel for organizing my files and folders, and Text Expander for text expansion and things like that. Now, Keyboard Maestro can actually do everything that those other three apps can do. So you can use it for window management, you can use it for text expansion, expanding out text snippets into much larger bodies of text. And you can also use it for the other one, Hazel, for organizing files and watching folders and doing various different things. The reason why I still use those other three sort of standalone applications is just because of the ease of use of actually creating these workflows using those different tools. So it's sometimes, you know, a one-trick pony, as it were, is the sort of better option rather than doing everything through Keyboard Maestro. And certainly there's a more ease of setup, shall we say, with things like Moom and Text Expander to just quickly create these things as opposed to going and doing it in Keyboard Maestro. I digress. Maybe you haven't even got a clue what all of those apps are, so I'll go and introduce them one by one. But we'll start off with Text Expander, actually, because with Stream Deck, because there's a lot that you can do with Stream Deck without those other apps. So I'll just give a sort of brief introduction as to how you might use Stream Deck as a productivity tool. I got an email just the other day from somebody who'd mentioned that they'd bought Stream Deck having watched some of my videos, and they're not a live streamer. They don't use it for live streaming or anything like that, but they've just been so impressed by what a productivity tool it is. And indeed, the Stream Deck is something that I bought for creating videos for my YouTube channel, and then I quickly realized, you know, it's just a productivity powerhouse. So let's start there, shall we? I'll just say a few hellos. Hello to a stranger, Malcolm Johnson from Scotland. That's my dad. Hey Parker, great to see you here as well. Hey David. Paul Duncan, moderator extraordinaire. Chris Tim, I always have you in my mind when I do this, because I know you're been asking for so long for the Keyboard Maestro stuff. And it's one of the problems that I have with Keyboard Maestro, as I was just saying to the chaps in the backstage Discord, live stream backstage area of Discord, was that, I never know quite where to draw the line with Keyboard Maestro, because it's so big a topic. You know, how do you sort of cover everything? It could be a month longer, 40-hour week masterclass for a year and still not cover Keyboard Maestro. But anyway, I'll try and cover some new stuff today for you, Chris. I think I recognize that avatar, maybe not. Yeah, I think it is. I don't want to say it wrong, but hey, Gina, great to see you here. Great to see you too. Apologies if I make a mess of your name, Tanju. And great to see you, Melvin, I think. I always get it the wrong way around. Hey, Michael. This is indeed. Yes, Melvin, great to see you. And Michael, great to see you here too. And we've also got the Stream Elements bot. Welcome to you too. Right, okie dokie. Let's crack on. And just quick final couple of hellos. Rebel Without a Reason, great to see you. And Michael in the UK as well. Okie dokie. So let's start off then with Stream Deck, shall we? And talk about just a few of the basic sort of productivity things that you can do with that. So I've by the way, I recently added a second Stream Deck XL to my collection, so I've now got two, and then also the Stream Deck Plus. And before I get too far into Stream Deck, the way that I use the Stream Deck Plus, because it's a great device. I love the dials; they're really useful for adjusting levels in Ecamm is one great thing. So you can have individual levels for each interview guest, for example. Also great for things like Photoshop, adjusting brush sizes and stuff like that. But the buttons, I always felt like they could have had a few more buttons on here. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend this as like the primary Stream Deck device you have. But if you have another Stream Deck, it's actually great for switching profiles on one Stream Deck with the other one. So I have my sort of main setups that I want to switch between on here. You can also swipe to different pages on it by swiping along here, which is pretty useful. But then basically I use this to change what is on this. So if you'll see, if I press this button here, it changes this all over to my Zoom profile. And if I press this one, it'll go back to the one that I'm using right now. Excuse me. So yeah, it's a great way to sort of control your other Stream Deck and have it switch profiles. I'll just mention, because somebody was asking me the other day about the Stream Deck pedal. The Stream Deck pedals are great, and do I use them? Yes, I do. I've become a bit attached to them. But I bought another one just last week, and subsequently both of them failed. Now, I just want to say this because Elgato are replacing them both, but I suspect that maybe the thing that caused them to fail was the fact that they were plugged into a power hub. I unplugged them to sort of rearrange where they were and plugged them back in, and within sort of hours of each other, both of them failed. And I wonder if sort of hot plugging, as it were, was what caused a power surge. Maybe they got a sensitive bit of electronics in them or something like that that actually sort of killed them. And the first pedal I'd had for 11 months, but it had been plugged in untouched and touched all the time with my feet, but I mean, I hadn't been moving it around for 11 months and no problem whatsoever. But it was only when I kind of unplugged it and moved it that it suddenly died. So I wonder if there's that is the issue. I'm just mentioning this in case you have a pedal. You may want to never unplug it or hot plug it into a powered hub, just in case that is the issue. They said it wasn't a known issue, but anyway, I thought I'd just pass that on. I'm rambling a little bit and I still haven't got into what we need to talk about. So excuse me. Here we are in the Stream Deck application, and you can select which Stream Deck it is you are controlling from here. And then I'll just go to a blank page. A few really sort of simple uses that you can have from a productivity point of view for Stream Deck is to actually just open up apps. So if you have different work modes that you're in where you want to open a whole series of apps, you can do that quite simply in Stream Deck. So first of all, if I come to the Stream Deck buttons down here, incidentally, if you've watched any previous videos from me or anyone else about Stream Deck, then they'll often refer to all the Stream Deck controls being under this Stream Deck heading over here. However, in a recent update, Stream Deck basically Elgato split them out into these three. So now you've got all the ones that were originally contained in the Stream Deck list have now been split out into navigation and multi-action. So that's where they all are. If you suddenly think that you've lost a load of the built-in actions, they've just moved into a different folder. But from here, you can do things like, if I come down to the system, where is it? System section. I'm just going over it. There it goes, right in front of me. So you can have it do things like open a website. So just literally type in the URL you want it to go to, and it'll open up in the default browser. Like that. Take1tech.io. There we go. So if I just press that button now, it's basically just going to open my website. So if there's websites that you go to regularly that are part of your sort of workflow that you need to go to, then you can basically add buttons in for all of those. There's better ways of doing this, as we'll go through. We'll see. Because here you can't necessarily select the browser, so it's just going to use your default browser. But nevertheless, that might be useful. Obviously, you can put your title onto the button as well. I'm not going to talk about icons. It's easy to just sort of drag and drop icons onto here. I've covered all of that before. Just keep to the productivity stuff today. You can also have it open files, folders, and applications. So this open, I think a lot of people just assume that is just for an application. But as you can see, it says app, file, but also folder as well. So if I go and choose an application from here, click on the little choose button, it's going to open up somewhere. Where's it going to open up? Somewhere else. Oh, there it is. It's funny that it's not showing for me. Interesting. I can see it's showing for you, but not for me. Now, why is that happening like that? Or is it? Oh, no, it's not. It's just, I beg your pardon. I thought it's the little file picker has shown up over the top of my eCam. So it looked like it was in my screen share, but it's not. Okay, here it is. So let me just open a random app, say Audio Hijack. I don't use that too much anymore, actually. But one thing is it brings in the app icon. So you can see the little app icon has then appeared on the screen. And you can, if you've got the app icon, you may not want the title. So just incidentally, you can click on the little title box down here and hide the title. So now you see the title's not there. It still appears in the box here, but it just doesn't appear on the app. So that is how you can open an application. But you can also come to open, and then you could have a particular file. So if you've got a particular file that you go into, maybe it's an accounts file or a working file or whatever it is, something that you open regularly. So I have a number of different Excel files that I update with information and stuff. So you can just come in here, and instead of going into the applications folder, which is where it'll come to from a default, you can basically just open up any file. So it doesn't have to be an app. But also you can select a folder. So if I was to select this folder here, click on open, you can see that that's going to open a folder. And so when I press that button, it will just open the file up with that folder. So again, if there's something you do as part of your workflow where you need to get access to certain files and folders, it's really easy to do in here. Now, so far, we've just looked at doing individual tasks here, but maybe it is that as part of your workflow, you want to open a certain website, open some apps up, and then open some folders and files. So a great one here is multi-actions. I use these all the time. So you can right click on any button and go to create multi-action, or you can come to the multi-action menu over here and create multi-action from here. So if I drag and drop that on, this then opens up this little second window here. And basically from here, you can just drag it and drop actions into this area. And that means that when you press the button, it's going to perform all of these tasks. So you may want to have it open up a whole series of apps. So if I go back to that system, let's just assume we go in here, we choose an app, put an app in there. Let's just choose something at random. Where are we? I'll just use the same one because it's just right there. So this is opening Audio Hijack, but then you could just go and drop a whole series of other things on here. You know, if you've got 5 or 6 apps that you need to work with at any given time, you can just drag those all in. Opening files, you can do that from there as well. Maybe you need to open some websites, whatever it happens to be. So that means that with that one button, you can open all of those different things. I've just noticed from Steve. Hey, Steve, great to see you. And can I get Stream Deck to close the active folder? If you mean that they're like the folder on the desktop, unfortunately, no. So you can't do that with Stream Deck itself. It's only got the open command, not a close. And as I say, with the hyperlinks as well, if you're opening a website, you don't have control over which browser it's opening in. However, we can do that with Keyboard Maestro. So we'll come to that a little bit later. And Melvin's saying when you've got Stream Deck open, is there a way to have a panel for each unit open at the same time to make programming multiple units easier? No, there isn't actually, but that would be great because I find myself doing that, especially with multiple Stream Decks where you want to copy something from one to another. Then you can, like if I came here, copied this, then I could switch to my other Stream Deck, go to this spot here and paste. So you can copy and paste stuff between Stream Decks, which I find myself doing quite often. But no, unfortunately, you can't have them both open at the same time. No, it would make it a lot easier though, that would. So yeah, that's basically how you can use Stream Deck just on its own as a great way to get yourself set up for, you know, certain things that you might be doing, certain workflows that you've got, so that everything is just sort of on the screen as you need it. It's not going to be organized on the screen just yet, but we'll talk about that in a little while with Moom. But I want to go into Keyboard Maestro a little bit because Keyboard Maestro really is the ultimate productivity tool. And I was talking with Peter and Jeff in the Discord just before we came on. And yeah, the feeling that I think people get sometimes with Keyboard Maestro is it can appear very overwhelming to begin with, just because it can do so many things. And the danger is to try and, well, first of all, be put off by that. So that would be one thing, is to just look at it and think, oh my gosh, there's so much there. It's just too much. I'm not even going to bother. Or the other thing to do would be, to not do, would be the thing that I did when I started using Keyboard Maestro, was thinking like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. There is so much it can do. Let me think of 1,000 things it can do, program a load of macros, and then promptly forget them all because they hadn't really become embedded into my workflow. So those are the two sort of things to avoid. What you should do is approach Keyboard Maestro thinking about like the fact that it can basically do anything that you could do on your Mac. And so what are the tasks that you find yourself doing repetitively, and then notice when you're doing those, and then go and look for a way to actually get Keyboard Maestro to do that. And we'll go through the process of how you actually create a macro like that. So just quickly, architectural sheet metal. Are you, what's your name, by the way, just so that I can, do I call you Mr. Sheet Metal or architectural? But are you saying Stream Deck can auto switch camera angles? Yeah, Stream Deck certainly can do that. I mean, that's what I use to make all of my videos. So like I can press a button here and it will switch to my top down shot, switch like that. So that's what I use for making these videos. It's what I'm using to switch to different screens. Yeah, and the software that I'm using, Ecamm Live, has a really great plugin for Stream Deck. So in fact, I should probably just mention plugins for Stream Deck as well. But yeah, they've got one of the, if not the biggest library of actions that I've seen in Stream Deck. Let me just tell you what I'm talking about that. Sorry, I should have mentioned that. Yeah, Bill, it is Keyboard Maestro is for Mac. I don't know about an equivalent for PC. I'm sure there is some sort of automation equivalents. I just don't know offhand what they are. It's been a while since I've used PC, so yeah, I'm not too sure about that. I'm sure there are some, and yeah, I'm sure that the PC's got also some built-in, slight sort of built-in functionality as well. But yeah, I'm not too sure about that one. Is the answer? Sorry, Bill. But just quickly going back to Stream Deck, just in case there are, I'm assuming a certain level of knowledge about Stream Deck. I have got a whole series of videos, sort of a beginner's guide. I'll go back and drop a link to. I did a sort of start to finish beginner's guide on my channel, so I'll go and drop a link into that back in the description after the fact. But just quickly about plugins for Stream Deck. Since we are still here, sorry for jumping about a little bit, but yeah, these things down the side here, each one of these little groups, so you've got Ecamm Live, that is the Ecamm Live plug-in for Stream Deck, and so Ecamm Live has created all of these different things that you can do. So start the video, switch a scene, switch cameras, show and hide things on screen, and all of that kind of stuff. So this is all of the different actions that you can do with Ecamm. It's a really, really comprehensive thing that you can basically control almost anything in Ecamm with that. And I use this a lot with Zoom. In fact, primarily, you know, for meetings. And so being able to just go into a Zoom meeting, you know, looking like this, as in with the, you know, the Ecamm production sort of quality, and then switch scenes to switch cameras and share screen and so on. Is just a really sort of seamless sort of flow, essentially, with the Stream Deck. And by the way, some of the stuff might look a little bit complex with Stream Deck, but it's really quick to get up and running. So I was on a coaching call with a chap yesterday who had never used Ecamm or Stream Deck, and was giving online webinars on Zoom. And sort of within 2 hours, we went from never having touched it to being able to just, you know, switch between different scenes and give a presentation and all that kind of stuff. And it's very quick to sort of get up to speed with it to understand the potential. And then it just becomes muscle memory of remembering which buttons to press. But in any case, so there are these sort of built-in plugins, but there is also a Stream Deck library that has a whole host of other plugins that do various different things. So as well as just those very basic automation and productivity things that I've just talked about. Oh, by the way, look, the Stream Deck Plus is now out in white, Keeley, if you're watching. So if I come to plugins, there's a whole load of other things in here. So if you use things like Elgato lighting, then you can control your lights from Stream Deck. I talked about Ecamm Live. Many people use OBS. I lost my final hair with OBS before I switched to Ecamm, but there you go. So you can control OBS with it. Lots of other different things in here and different plugins for you to control various different things. There's a Zoom plugin, a Microsoft Teams plugin. So just in terms of it being a great productivity tool, I highly recommend just going and checking out all of these other plugins to see, if there's anything in there that you use, any applications where this can basically make it all sort of operable at the touch of a button. So yeah, let's get on to Keyboard Maestro, and I've talked about it, but I haven't really talked about what it is. So for those that are new to it, I know that there's lots of people in the chat that are more than familiar and are just waiting for some new information. But Keyboard Maestro, basically, you have 3 columns in here. So the first one is your sort of groups of macros. So a macro is some sort of little automation process. So down here on the left-hand side, we've got the way that I've personally just grouped all of my things together. When you are in one of those groups, so here I'm just happen to be in this one, pedal switch, I'll talk about that in a moment, you have a list then of macros that are within that group. And then over here is just some information about the grouping that you've got. But if you click on any one of these macros, then you'll see down here what the automation steps are. So if I just create a new macro in here, just give it the old test name. Now, a macro basically consists of 2 parts. In short, there is some form of trigger that's going to cause this macro to happen. And then there is some sort of thing that is going to happen once it's been triggered. So it says triggered by any of the following. And so we'll go through what those are, and then it will execute the following actions. So the first part then is the triggers. So if I click on new trigger, it can be, and the way a lot of people use this is with hotkeys. So, you press a shortcut key or whatever, and it triggers this macro. But you can also just use it with Stream Deck. I'll show you how to do that in a moment. But basically where you just press the Stream Deck button and then it triggers the macro. And in fact, in that case, you can just leave this completely blank because we're just going to trigger it by the Stream Deck. But there's a whole load of other triggers in here. So things like clipboard changed. So it might be that when you copy something in the, to the clipboard, so that causes the clipboard to be changed, it automatically does something. So you might want it that every time you copy something from the clipboard, it then triggers some series of actions like pasting it somewhere or logging it somewhere or whatever it is. Dragged file, so it could be that as you start to drag a file, something pops up for you to drop it in a certain location. Let's just go through and look at a load of these. Folder trigger, so that would be, a new file appears in a folder. Maybe it goes and automatically sorts it somewhere. That's one of the ones that I use a different app for, so that's where Hazel comes in. I'll talk about Hazel a bit later. You've got gesture triggers and things like that. Mounted volume trigger. So that would be, like when you connect a certain disk, you might want it to just automatically do a backup or something like that. Then there is periodic trigger. So every so often, whatever it happens to be, do something. You've also got things like wireless network trigger. So it's just dropping off the bottom of the screen there. Wireless network trigger. So one thing you might want it to do is when you join a, the local coffee shop Wi-Fi, that it turns off a load of stuff. So you may not want it syncing certain files and folders and things like that over a potentially unsecured network, or maybe you just want to turn off, iCloud sync or whatever it is. So those are the sorts of things you can do with these triggers. There's also timed ones, of course. You could have it so that it just comes on at, whatever time you're in bed and automatically does a backup or things like that. So there's all these different sort of triggers. But basically the short of this is that, anything that you think that you do normally as part of either a part of a routine or something that you have to do, there's going to be a trigger in here that is, is going to simulate that. So we're always just looking for, what is it that I'm doing? What is it that I want to automate? And how can I automate it? And so there will be some sort of trigger in here that matches up with that. And it may be just that you're going to press a button to do it rather than you do it. But that is the triggers, and you can have sort of multiple different triggers. I won't get into scripting; it's too big a topic to start getting into all of that as well. But here, then we go on to the following action. So we'll execute the following action. So this is like once it has been triggered, what is it going to do? So if you come and click on one action, this is where sometimes the O word, the overwhelm, can start. Because if you click on new action, and then you look at all actions here, so this is all of the different things that it could potentially do. And there's really a lot of them. And I think a lot of people start looking down this list. Maybe some of them don't make sense as well. And so there's the temptation to then think, it's too complicated, I'm not interested. Or, as I say, the other way is to think, look at all these things. Let me try and make it do them all. So don't be put off by the sheer volume of things that it can do. The best way to look at it is the fact that that means that whatever it is that you are doing that you want to replicate, you can probably have it do those things for you. So it's things like, let's just look at, say, the like a file. So if you type in the search box, they are split, by the way. So if you look in categories, go to all actions is going to list everything. You can favorite them. You can also see them. They've sort of split them down here. So there's certain things related to images, image sizes and all of that kind of stuff. And if I go to here and just type in file, then you can see all the things related to a file. So copy a file, delete a file, duplicate a file, all of those kind of things. You can look at things like menu. So maybe you want to activate something in a menu. This, by the way, is one that I use all the time. So if you've found yourself in a situation where you want to control an app, but it's not the active app and you're having to sort of switch back to it all the time, one of those use cases for me was when I'm watching YouTube videos that are instructional videos and I want to be able to pause the video whilst I'm doing the thing, or I want to be able to skip forward or backwards in the video in YouTube, like I'm watching a tutorial on how to use an application. Well, if I'm doing the thing in the application, then that I'm trying to learn or whatever, then I'd have to go back to the YouTube window in the browser to go to YouTube to then go and pause the video. Well, one of the great actions that I love in Keyboard Maestro is this one, which is select or show menu item. So if I drag that into this macro here, what this allows me to do is actually basically activate anything from any menu in any application that is open. So if I just move this over so you can see this a bit. So what would happen if I run this macro is it's going to basically activate a menu item. So if I go to select menu, but I'll click on this menu here, this is showing me all of my open applications. So let me just go to Ecamm, since that's what I'm using at the moment. Then it's going to have all of the Ecamm live menus. So if I click on scene, you can see it's pulled up all of my different scene lists down here. So you're seeing basically whatever the menu tree is for that application. Let's go into a different one, Finder. So this list down here that I'm scrolling through. That corresponds directly to the list that you see in your menu bar. So you have the Apple menu, you have the Finder menu, File, Edit, View, Go, and so on. So you could do, go to File, New Folder, for example. So if I did that, then what this would do is when I run this macro by whatever trigger I've got, it may be a Stream Deck button, then it's going to create a new folder in the Finder. But the crucial part is, even if the Finder isn't the most, frontmost window. So that's the important thing about this, is it can activate things in Windows for applications that aren't actually the active application, as long as the application is open. I'm not sure why you would create a folder just randomly without the application being open, but it shows the sort of the process there. So that is the one that I use all the time, and so on my website I've got a number of icon packs. So just incidentally, and this is how I've done these. So Zoom is an icon pack for Stream Deck that uses the Zoom built-in plugin, but there's some like custom controls in there that I've added in as well. But this one here is specifically the one I was just referring to. So this YouTube icon pack, basically I've got all of the different keyboard shortcuts for YouTube have been sort of programmed into Keyboard Maestro as macros, and then this Stream Deck icon pack is basically triggering those macros to do things like, turn on the closed captions, forward, backwards, go to the next timestamp in the YouTube video, speed it up, slow it down, go to a particular point. So I'm controlling YouTube in the browser, but from Keyboard Maestro when it's not the active application, if that makes sense. And just one other thing, there's another sort of similar macro in Keyboard Maestro then that I'm using to do that, which is keystroke. So if I click on new action here, I'm going to just type in keystroke, because actually that particular one is not operating a menu command. It is typing a keystroke. But typing a keystroke, if I just drag this down, you can simulate a keystroke. But if you click this little thing here, you can actually send the keystroke to a specific application as well. So if you've got a keyboard shortcut, or like in YouTube, for example, in a browser, pressing the space bar when you're watching the video, that's going to play and pause the video. So if you wanted to simulate that keystroke in the browser, even when it wasn't the active application, you could come in here, simulate keystroke space, but then click on this little cog icon, but then send to, and then you could just choose Safari. So if I come down here, it's just off the bottom of the list for you, but it's just there, Safari. So now that's going to type the keystroke space in Safari. So that would be basically that macro. If I just delete this second part, that macro there is basically your play and pause button in YouTube. So it's a really simple thing, like it's just a macro with one single action, but actually it's really useful to be able to trigger that from a Stream Deck button and know that you're going to be able to play and pause your YouTube video. So that is pretty simple in terms of an action, but it's one I use all the time, and it might be something that you find is and one that you might immediately add into a workflow that you've got. Things can get more complex, and you can chain different things together as well. Another one that I use all the time, you might find that you do something repetitively where you've got to log into a certain website. You've got to go and click on a button, maybe type in some information, click on another button, and these sorts of things where you find that you're constantly doing this same repetitive task over and over again. One of those that I do all the time is uploading videos to YouTube. And there is no sort of simple automated way to just say, right, upload a video to YouTube. Actually, you can do it in Ecamm Live. I tell a lie. You can have it upload your previous video to YouTube. But I have it set so that I want to do it from the Finder, just because I do rename my files in the Finder first. So if I show you what this one looks like, I've got it here somewhere. It's this one, Take One Tech upload. So this here, upload last Ecamm file to YouTube. This uses a macro called click on found image, or move and click on found image. And what that means is that you can have Keyboard Maestro look for an image that is on the screen and then go and click on it. So if we look at this shows you basically like a much longer chain of macros. So here it's doing lots of different things, one after the other. And I'll just run you through this in a sort of sequence, and you'll kind of get the idea of what it's doing. So the first thing that it is doing is it's going to execute the following. So new Google Chrome window with URL. So that's one of the macros. This thing that I read at the top is always kind of the name of the macro. And if I was to search for a new macro in here, if I search for URL, you'll see that we've got all of those. So basically get a URL, open a URL, and so on. If I click on browser, there is one in here for browser somewhere, if I can spell it right. I can never type and spell. So click browser link and so on. But what this is doing then is, first of all, it is opening this URL for YouTube Studio in the browser. Now, when you open YouTube Studio in the browser, I'm just going to get it up right now so I can show you what it looks like. When you want to upload a video, let me just open it up and I'll share the screen with you. Now I'm opening this in Safari just so that I'm not opening an extra Chrome window. When you want to upload a video in Safari, in YouTube, on this one here, wrong scene here. When you want to upload a video in YouTube, you basically come up to here where it says create, and then you have to click on this button, create, and then you have to click on here to say upload video. And then you have to click on here to select file, or you can drag and drop it, but you can click on the select file. And then this will bring up this picker, and it's going to default to a certain thing, which in my case is Ecamm Live recordings. And then it's got a list of files. Now I have these sorted in chronological order, so the last one is always at the bottom. So I'm always going to want to go and click on this one, and then I'm going to want to go down to the bottom and click on upload. The last one happened to be the last recording of our Q&A for Academy members. But that is the process that I go through. I have to click on this button up here, click on upload videos, click on select files, and then pick the file which is the bottommost one in this list. So because this is something that I'm doing all of the time and I wanted to replicate it, what I've done is that's exactly what I've done here. So if we follow through these steps, the first thing is Google Chrome, and it's going to open a YouTube URL. The next step is it waits for 4 seconds, just because it takes a while for the browser to open up and load up and whatever. So it probably doesn't take that long, but I'm just allowing some time because it doesn't matter. Once I press the button, I don't need to worry about a second here or there. So it takes 4 seconds. Then I'm using this thing, which is click on found image. So I'll just show you where that is. If you click on new action, actually the easiest way to do it is just to type found, click at found image. So that is the macro that I sort of dragged and dropped on the other side. And I don't know if you can see there, but there's a tiny little image. And all I did was I just went into my my YouTube studio, and I just took a screenshot of just the button. So it's the button that I want it to click on. So in YouTube Studio, I literally press Command-Shift-4, which is the Mac shortcut for take a screenshot. And then I just literally put it over this button, and now I've just taken a screenshot. And then back in Keyboard Maestro, I've come in here and I've dragged and dropped that onto the little image thing. Now, actually, you can have it do lots of things with this found image. You can have it click on the image. You can have it double click, triple click, or just move the mouse to that position. You can also have it click with the left button, the right button, the center button, or any other button you've got on your mouse. If it's something where you need to hold a modifier key down as you click as well, then you can do that here. So you can see the modifiers. And you can also have it do it to a relative position. So it might be that there's an image and you want to click either to the side or to the top or the bottom or whatever. So at the moment, I've got this clicking at the found images center, but you can have it clicking in the corner, the top, the bottom, wherever. So there's all these different sort of refinements, but I'm just clicking in the center. There's the image. And then you can also say whether you want it to look in all screens, in the main screen. So if you've got things opening in different places, you've got all this control over, where it's going to be clicking, basically. So that's basically clicking on that create button. So that's step one or step two, that is open the browser, click on that button, and then I've got it waiting for 2 seconds to wait for that little pop-up to come up. Now, if you remember, if we go back here, so far what this has done is we've opened the browser, it's clicked on create. Now we need it to click on this one, upload videos. And so coming back to Keyboard Maestro, that is exactly what this one is doing. This next one, after that little pause, is now clicking on this one, which is upload video. So it's looking for that image to upload the video and clicking on that. Now it's waiting for 2 seconds. And then if you remember, the next step is that there's a little button to say search for files. So now we're clicking on that button to search for files. Now it waits for 2 seconds to bring up the the little finder viewer or whatever to pick a file. And if you remember, we want to click on the bottommost file. So what I have it doing is I have it looking for the MP4 extension. And then if there is more of them on than, if there is more occurrences of that little image, then you can choose, do you want it to be the bottommost, topmost? It needs to be unique, the best match. So I just have it clicking on the bottommost because then I know that it's basically finding the one that's at the bottom of the list. So that is then basically clicking on the most recent file. Then it's waiting for 2 seconds and then it's typing the return key, hitting the keystroke return. So this whole series here, this whole sequence is basically just simulating me going and opening YouTube, clicking upload video, clicking select to upload video, clicking the finder, clicking on the video and clicking to upload it. So all of that is just done as part of this macro. There's another part to macros, which is once you've created a macro, you can actually use that and call that into another macro. So it's almost like if you've done any coding, it's like subroutines. So you can have one thing that does this thing, but then you can call it many times if you want in another macro. So I wanted to keep this part, the upload process, separate to my main sort of upload workflow. So after I've finished recording a video, if I go to this one, TOT upload workflow, the first thing that this does, first thing it does is actually hide all applications. So when I want to get into my sort of upload workflow or my post-recording workflow, first of all, it hides all applications. So there is just an action in Keyboard Maestro, which is called hide all applications. So it wipes the desktop, basically. It doesn't close them, but just hides them. This one here is execute macro. So this is how you can basically call in another macro. And this one, execute macro, upload last eCam file, that's basically, as part of this macro, it's going to do all those things that I've just run through that were in that other macro. And then what it does is it does a whole series of things. So it opens my eCam Live recordings folder. It opens the last folder, the last video, because I'll go through and watch it to put in timestamps in theory. That's the theory. And then the opens up Finder. Then it opens up various other different things like my, I've got an Excel sheet that I add in some information about all the videos that I make. It opens up Photoshop and opens up specifically my thumbnail file that I make my thumbnails with. And then also this last one here is it's activating Moom. So basically this macro here, if the first one there is just dealing with uploading to YouTube, this one deals with opening up all the other things that I have open. There's a text file that opens up as well that I then sort of process the video with in terms of adding in some information, adding in the thumbnail and so on. So it just basically sets up my monitor for that work frame, that work mode, that sort of frame of mind. So as you can see, they can get quite complex, but at the same time, all of those things are just a series of simple steps. And it's the steps that I noticed that I was doing every time. And that's the way to think about this is, you know, if you find yourself opening a series of applications, there is a macro to open the applications. If you're finding yourself opening a folder, you can open a folder from here. If it's a particular file or if you're clicking on something, you can do that all in here. Another one that I use quite a lot, and just to give an example of this idea of subroutines, is in eCam Live. eCam Live has a whole series of utility windows. So if I just share my entire eCam desktop, although actually my eCam Live is up here at the moment. Let me just bring it down. You'll see what I'm talking about. If I pop this down here, where's it gone now? So if I share my entire desktop right now, what you'll see is that I've basically got eCam open down at the bottom. I have this scenes window, which is all the different scenes that I've got, overlays, camera effects. I usually have the camera switcher open and some other things, but I've got them closed at the moment for the live stream. And so if you want to use Keyboard Maestro to sort of manage your eCam windows, this is something that Jeff was asking about. I think it was Jeff, just last week or a few days ago. You can basically have Keyboard Maestro open the different windows that you want to have open at any given time. So in eCam, if I click on the window menu, just move that out of the way so you can see. In the, sorry about that, zooming and zooming out. In the window menu of eCam, you've got a list of all of those different utility windows. So the bandwidth statistics, camera effects, camera switcher, and so on. So I have a macro in Keyboard Maestro to actually open those. Now you might think, well, why don't I just open them from here? So if I click on, let's say, overlays, I'll just hide it from here. Hopefully this will make sense, more so to eCam users. But this one, overlays, if I click on overlays, it will open that window. However, it doesn't actually close it if I click it again. So it's not a toggle to toggle it on and off as you get in some applications. Some it's kind of like show and hide window, isn't it? But in here, it isn't. It just literally closes it. However, there is a button in here which is hide all utility windows. So just there, or a menu item. So if I click on that one and I click hide all utility windows, you'll see that all of those different utility windows will close. So I've just opened the chat back up again. So what I wanted to do was in Keyboard Maestro, when I am using the when I'm using Ecamm, I'm either using it for recording videos, in which case I want to have certain utility windows open for doing that. I tend to have more utility windows open when I'm recording, just because it's likely that I'm going to be adjusting things like screen sharing areas, or it may be overlays and things like that I'm adding in. I also have more open when I'm streaming, because I've got the chat window open, as you saw just in front of me, the bandwidth statistics as well off to another side. So I want to have different windows open. But then if I'm doing something like a Zoom call where I'm just using the virtual camera from Ecamm into Zoom, then likely I will not have the same number of windows open. So what I did was I created in Keyboard Maestro, just to move a few things back around now. In Keyboard Maestro, I created a series of small macros that basically just open and close the windows I want. And this sort of demonstrates the ability to do these little subroutines. So if I come into here and where is it now? Just see which one it's in. It's not that one. That's just a little demo one. It's actually Ecamm, isn't it? There we go. This is when I demoed it before, in fact. So what I've done is I've got basically the kind of like the base windows that I want open in Ecamm, i.e. the ones that I'd have open all the time for recording or live streaming. So here, the first thing it does is it actually hides all the utility windows, because I can't toggle windows on and off, but I can get rid of them all and then just show the ones that I want. So the first thing it does is it uses that option that I talked about previously, which is select a menu in the menu of a particular app. So this happens to go to the Ecamm Live menu, and then it goes into the window submenu, and then from there it just hides all utility windows. So this first step basically shuts down all the windows in Ecamm, but then this one then opens up the camera effects window, the overlays window, the scenes window, sound effects, sound levels, and the camera switcher. So that's what that thing does. And if I go back to here a second, I'll just show you what this looks like. I've moved my camera off the screen, but if I basically press this macro when I sharing my entire screen with you. If I trigger this macro now, whoops, sharing the wrong one. Where is it? Not allowing me to share that one. Just a second. Do it this way instead. Sharing the wrong desktop in demo mode. There we go. If I press that, trigger that macro, you'll see what happens. It closes down all the windows, and then now it's just randomly in no particular order, but it's opening up all of those different windows. Now they're not actually placed in the right place. We use Moon for that, but that was just me pressing one button, and then it opens up all of those apps, all of those windows. I've then got another macro that I use, which is very similar, but all it does is it adds in the live streaming one. So if I trigger the live streaming macro, what that's going to do is that's going to open the chat and the bandwidth statistics. The bandwidth statistics is on a different monitor. So why is that useful, though? If I just stop sharing my screen now for a second. Well, that means that as part of my setup for whatever it is I'm doing, whether I'm recording, whether I'm on a Zoom call, and by the way, the Zoom one just basically hides all of those things. I've basically got these two setups then, which is I've got one macro there for the base windows, I call it, and then the other one for the live streaming. So that's the bandwidth statistics and the chat. And then here, like for live streaming, it basically executes both of those groups. And if I'm just doing the videos, then it will just execute just the base windows. But then I'm calling those into other routines as well. So as part of my setup process, for example, for recording, it's also setting all of my screens and things like that, and organizing the apps using Moom. But then it's just triggering this particular macro as a subroutine within that, if that is making sense. So it's really good to be able to sort of chain these things together. Let me just see if there is some other things that I was going to mention here, because the problem I always have with Keyboard Maestro, I mentioned it earlier, is the depth that you can go to with it. It could be literally like a year of study and not study everything that it can do. So it's a case of not trying to understand everything it can do, but just understand that it probably can do what you want it to do, and then go and figure out those little things. I am making the automation masterclass though, and it will be available as part of the Academy. So I'll just sort of mention that briefly as well. But the Take One Tech Academy gives you access to all of my courses. So the existing courses, the Ecamm, Zoom, the YouTube Beginner's Guide is coming out tomorrow, and the Discord Beginner's Guide is already out. But I've got this release schedule of all of these other different courses as well that are coming in the pipeline. And one of the ones that I got asked for was Keynote, and so I have actually bumped that one up a little bit. It was intended to be later on in the schedule, but I've sort of moved it up. The next course that's coming out is the Stream Deck Masterclass. That'll be out in about 10 days, something like that. But then after that is the Automation Masterclass in July. So if it is something you're interested in, either take a look at the Academy at takeonetech.io/academy, or if you just want to be kept up to date in terms of when it's released, you can always also just go to my my homepage and then just enter your email address there, and then you'll be kept up to date with any updates and things like that. But yes, the date for the that productivity course though is basically in July. So sometime in July is when I'll be releasing that, and it is the later one out of all of them. And I'll be totally honest, it's because of this whole issue that I have with trying to understand like which bits do I include, which bits don't I include. But it will be a lot more structured. I always have difficulty. I've talked about it at length several times on live streams and in videos, but I always just feel like, as we've done today, I've been going 50 minutes and I've just scratched the surface of a couple of little things that you can do with Keyboard Maestro. But hopefully it's sort of given you an idea of the kinds of things that you might be able to do. But let's have a look at some other macros just to give you a better idea of the things that it can do. So you can do things with images, for example. So another thing I had it doing was when an image gets dropped in a certain folder, I want it to resize the image. You can have it drop, even add things to the image. So like watermarks and stuff like that is something you can have it do. Another one actually, which is interesting, is interesting. It's all relative, isn't it? It's interesting to me. You've got this one here, deactivate macro group. Now that's one that I used. As well as the Stream Deck pedals, which I've mentioned at the beginning. Before that, I had some generic pedals, which were basically just, they plug in over USB, and they're essentially just a little pedal with a switch that simulates a keystroke, and it just happened to simulate the A, B, and C keystroke. So with Keyboard Maestro, what you can do is I had this series of different pedals, so pedal 1, 2, and 3, and it's looking for when I talked about you can have looking for a trigger. The trigger can be a keystroke, but you can also specify the device that the keystroke is coming from. So here I had my pedal 1, 2, and 3, and then it's looking for the keystroke from this particular device, and it was looking for the keystroke A, and then this one was looking for B, and this one was looking for C, but coming from that device. So it meant that if I pressed A, B, and C on my actual keyboard, it didn't trigger the macro, and likewise, if I pressed the pedals, it didn't start typing on the screen or anything because I was capturing that here, and then it did different things. So in here, I had it use, this one was for giving presentations, so pedal 1, 2, and 3 was doing these different things. But what I wanted to be able to do, sorry, thank you. A voice from the ether there. I was not showing what what I was supposed to be showing. Thank you very much. The benefits of having Discord where they can just whisper in my ear. Thanks, Peter. So yeah, here we go. This was this macro group for these pedals. So I've got pedal 1, 2, and 3, and it was looking for a keystroke from that particular device. So here, A, B, and C. And then it was basically performing these actions. So I was using it. This, as I say, was before I got the Stream Deck pedal. This I was using to switch scenes in Ecamm. So it was working exactly like that. But what I did then was, because I had different things that I wanted to do with the 3 pedals, I wanted to be able to switch between, one use case and another use case. So here you can see on the left-hand side, I've got these different pedals. So for live streaming, for recording, for using with a teleprompter, for Zoom, and another couple down there as well. So then what I did was I created this other group of macros called pedal switch. And basically, this was to activate a specific group. And what you'll notice is these groups here, some of them are blue and some of them are light blue. And the light blue ones mean that basically it's not active. So if I look here, you can see that this macro group is enabled. Whereas if I go to one of these ones that is grayed out, then you'll see that it is not enabled. And obviously, if I've got macros associated with this pedal device, then I didn't want to have them all active at once, because then it would get confused by what was supposed to be happening. However, with this pedal switch here macro, basically what that did was it just deactivated all of those other ones and only activated, in this case, the live stream grouping. So that's how I was able to, in the same way that with the Stream Deck pedal, you can kind of switch between different profiles on the Stream Deck. This is how I was basically simulating that with just a macro to switch between those different groupings. In terms of triggering macros, so I've mentioned that you can trigger them with keystrokes and all of those other different things, but you can also trigger them from the Stream Deck, and the plugin that I use for it is not actually the built-in Stream Deck Keyboard Maestro plugin, because there is a Keyboard Maestro plugin which is here. So if you go to the store, it's called the Stream Deck Store, but I don't think there's anything in there that's you actually pay for. It's still all free at the moment. Click on plugins, and then up at the top you just search for Keyboard Maestro. And then you can see Keyboard Maestro is there. But the one I use is actually a third-party one, which is called KM Link. And the reason I like that one is because if I just come out of here, the Keyboard Maestro will appear in the automation section, and the KM Link actually appears in custom. So if you're wondering where it is, it's just literally one button for each of those, but it's not. It doesn't have its own grouping. It just comes in one of these two sections. So what I like about KM Link is if you drag and drop that, then you can basically just select a macro. So it'll pull up a list of all of your different macros, and basically you just choose the one you want. And then when you press the button, it will perform that macro. So I probably now over 50% of my macros in Keyboard Maestro are Stream Deck triggered. So it's a great way to trigger them that way. The Keyboard Maestro one, though, is quite interesting. If I drop the Keyboard Maestro macro on here, this can actually work the opposite way. So let me try and just bring Keyboard Maestro up into here for a second. And I'm going to move this just over here to this second slot. So this is telling you where this button is. So it's in a row 2, column 1. So 1, 2, row 2, and then the first column. This is something that I'm still not sure. It's one of those things that I've got it in my head now as a potential to use it, but I haven't figured out where I'm going to use it or how. I'll just create another little test macro here. You'll see where I'm going with this. And now if I click on New Action, the way the Stream Deck plugin for Keyboard Maestro works is if I type in Stream Deck here, you can have it do things where Keyboard Maestro is basically going to be controlling your Stream Deck. So you can have it set an image on the Stream Deck button, change the title, show an alert, or show the little OK message. So if I click on Set Image, and I'll drag that there, and then I want to choose the row and column. So if you remember, it was row 2, column 1. Whoops, mistype. And so it's going to look on the Stream Deck for that button. Then if I click on to this macro, so if I go to this macro's icon, so it's going to put that icon there. You can always drag and drop a new icon onto the macro. But if I run this now, you'll see how it's just changed the button on the Stream Deck. So thinking about how you might want to use this, if you have certain things that as you're streaming or working or whatever, you want to have certain items displayed on the screen of your Stream Deck, you could use this for notifications and things like that. You can have it change the title. So if I change title here, drag that one in and drop it in. Hello, row 2. So if I run that one now, you can see now it's just added in the title there that we put in. So as part of some other workflow, you could be actually having Keyboard Maestro display things on your Stream Deck, which I thought was pretty cool. I don't know how I would use it right now, to be honest, but it's just an interesting one to be aware of. But KM Link, though, is the best one to actually just trigger these shortcuts with. That's a great idea, Bicky. I'm just realizing I've not checked in, and Bicky's saying I should set up a button when you go live to put Discord in streamer mode. It's great, great idea. Let me just see what other things I have missed here. Going back a little bit further. Yeah, just to I'm just catching up with the comments. I'll just check in on some of these. So do you have to have an Ecamm subscription for that? So presumably that is related to the camera switching. Just one second. My Ecamm just seems as though it's spinning its wheels a little bit. Where I've lost my place now. Oh, great. Thanks, Alex. That's easy to remember. Close to mine. So the camera switching I'm doing with Ecamm Live. Yes. So you do need a subscription to Ecamm to be able to use Ecamm and then use the Stream Deck plugin. However, other streaming software has the camera switcher ability. And even in Zoom, even the free plugin for Zoom, if you're just using Zoom, there is a plugin there for Zoom that allows you to just sort of switch between cameras, so you can just sort of cycle through them. So although I'm using Ecamm and it's got a great plugin, same with OBS, which is a free sort of live production software, similar functionality to Ecamm. But Ecamm's more user-friendly in my opinion. But yeah, that has a plugin as well, so that you'll be able to do the camera switching. Ecamm is Mac only as well, I'm afraid. Equivalent on PC is vMix, which is a great, it has a great Stream Deck plugin. Yeah, vMix is great, and also, as I say, OBS is cross-platform, and that one is also available. vMix is a good option on the PC. How many copies of Keyboard Maestro for how many copies of Stream Deck? I'm not sure I quite understand that one. The Keyboard Maestro has a plugin with one action that you can just trigger all your Keyboard Maestro things. I don't know if I'm sure I'm missing the point of that. Do you need multiple Keyboard Maestro for multiple Stream Decks? Oh, I see what you mean. I think no, you don't. So if you've got multiple Stream Decks, then yeah, you can just assign the buttons to on each individual Stream Deck can control everything. So yeah, you can have as many Stream Decks as you want, and they will still control a single instance. All Stream Deck is essentially is a programmable series of buttons, and whether you've got one device with one button or you've got 10 devices with 320 buttons altogether, then it's all the same. So it all goes through the Stream Deck software. So the applications are basically only going to see it as one sort of controller, effectively. In short, can Keyboard Maestro close one tab in a browser? Technically, yes, but you would need to be specific about what it is closing. So if I browser or tab, let's see. It's not something I've done, but let's see. Close tab. I'll find this. Yeah, you can do new tab. Now, what the way to do that, actually, thinking about it, would be in the Safari menu in Window, then you can close the tab from there. So in your Safari menu, if I go to this, I'm in Safari and I've just gone to the drop down. So there is this thing here, close tab. So you would be able to do it if you basically use Keyboard Maestro to switch to the tab that you wanted, and then have it activate this. I don't think there is a specific close tab in Keyboard Maestro that closes, a specific name tab. Let me just double check on that though. Select tab. Yeah, I don't think there's a specific one to close a specific tab. But if I was going to do that, that's how I'd do it. I would use Chrome. I would use Keyboard Maestro to switch to that tab, and then I would use Keyboard Maestro to activate the menu command in Safari, which is that thing we've already looked at, which is to go and activate something from the menu, and it would be the menu item close current tab. So that is how I would approach that one. It's also got a keyboard shortcut of Command W, so you could also have Keyboard Maestro activate that keyboard shortcut. I prefer always to use the menu, just because then you're never going to get any potential conflict with another keyboard shortcut, or if the app isn't open, it's always going to be doing the exact thing you want it to do in the app that you want it to do. Can you automate your lights with Maestro actions as well? You can, and in fact, so my lights are Nan light. Now, Nan lights they don't have a built-in Mac app. Let me put this somewhere where I can show it to you. They don't have a built-in Mac app, but what they do have is a mobile app. And so this is the mobile app running on the Mac. So as of Monterey, was it, I think it was earlier than Ventura. I think in Monterey, you can run iOS apps, some iOS apps on your Mac. So I have my Nanlite here, my Nanlite app, and basically if I toggle these off, I can turn my lights off with these buttons here. So I could go ahead and turn all my studio lights off, go into the witness protection look. So I can control that with this. So what I did was I created a Keyboard Maestro shortcut. If I look at this, and I'll show you what the macro looks like. So this is my Nanlite Keyboard Maestro shortcut. So what it does is it activates NanLink, which is the app. It waits for half a second for it to open up. It then moves to a specific point. So I'm not using a found image, but I'm having it move to a specific point on the screen relative to the top and the left-hand side. And then it's clicking on various different things to basically go and click on these. Actually, I use profiles in here, not profiles, scenes in the NanLink app. So I can basically have it switch between either this background or a different one. So that is how I use Keyboard Maestro to control my apps. Now that is my lights, I should say. That is very specific to my Nanlights, but nevertheless, that is how I'm doing that. Do your icon packs come with Keyboard Maestro macros? They do indeed, yes. So the Stream Deck icon packs have the Stream Deck icons themselves as images. They also have the Stream Deck profile. So you import the Stream Deck profile and it's already sort of pre-coded with the link to Keyboard Maestro. And then it also has the Keyboard Maestro macros that you can then import. And interestingly, you've just reminded me as well, this was something that Jeff was asking about just in the Discord earlier. If you are wanting to sort of import Keyboard Maestro macros or export them, you can do that just by going to any one of these groups. All my windows have been moved around. There we go. If I right click on this group here, it's only got one thing in it, but I could go to here and go to export macro group. And then if I want to import that, or in the case of my my icon packs, when you download them, there is the Keyboard Maestro macro group, and you just go up to the Keyboard Maestro menu at the top, and then from in there you can go to File, Import, and then go to this Import Macros Safely, and it'll basically just import them safely, imports them, and then the group is toggled off by default, so you can check what's in the macro, which is always a wise idea, even though you can trust my macros, but still, it's a wise habit to get into. So you can click on Import Safely, and that will just import the macro group into your Keyboard Maestro, and then you'll have the all of the macros in there. And so in terms of the actual step to do that, first step would be import the macros into Keyboard Maestro. The second step would be to actually make sure you've got the KM Link plugin for Stream Deck. And then the third would be to import the Stream Deck profile. So then it's going to be able to, first of all, talk to Keyboard Maestro, and all of the macros will be in there. So that would be the process from that point of view. I know that Bicky's saying he loves Stream Deck. I know you do. You've got a very envious setup, a great setup with your. Why does that keep going on and off with your setup? I did really enjoy seeing your photo. I've tried to somewhat emulate it in terms of adding my second Stream Deck in, but yeah, I love your setup. Hey, Katie, great to see you here. Thank you for stopping by. How does that work with multiple profiles on multiple decks? That's interesting, actually. I'm assuming that means the Keyboard Maestro button. I wonder if it's interesting that is. I wonder if it's just looking for, because it's not something I've played with. If that's the one you're talking about, the one that puts the button on, puts the images on the Stream Deck button, the thing we just tested. I wonder if it just looks for the. Let's get it back up. Where's it gone? Where did I put it? Demo group, is it in there? Let's try it again. I'm going to try this again. So I think the question is, how does it work if we use this Stream Deck macro to control Stream Deck and put something on the button? So Stream Deck. I wonder if it is the active one or not. Let's have a look. So let's just say set desktop image, set button image. What I'll do is I'll move it so that I've got basically the exact same button. So this button here, or let me just do a different one. Where is it? Stream Deck. Do a bit of a live test. Keyboard Maestro. I'm going to put this somewhere where I've got a free space on my other one. So this is virtual row 4, column 6. So I'll put this virtual row 4, column 6. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this macro, this action, and I'm going to switch to my other Stream Deck. I'm going to put it in exactly the same place. And now let's see what happens on my Stream Decks when I just run the Keyboard Maestro macro from down here. It's done it on both of them. So the answer, Vicky, is if you've got the button on just one Stream Deck, it will do it on just that one. But as you can see on my my Stream Decks, hopefully, that button there is the one that I've just changed, and it did it on both of the Stream Decks because it will only do it, by the way, if you've got the actual Stream Deck button. Let me backtrack. It won't replace just any button on your Stream Deck. It'll only do it if you've actually got the Keyboard Maestro button in place in that square. So if I didn't have that there, if I hadn't got that Keyboard Maestro button there, then the macro is not going to change it. So if I run the macro again, it's not going to change anything in there because it hasn't got that button. So so you wouldn't be able to then have two Stream Decks with 64 buttons and then have Keyboard Maestro changing all of those, because there would be by definition duplication. So yeah, that is a limitation. There isn't a way in the Keyboard Maestro to select a specific Stream Deck, but yeah, I'm guessing that would be all right. I don't intend to have it updating 64 buttons. So yeah, and note that as well, in case it wasn't clear, when you are updating that, it's literally only acting as like a notification thing. You can't also have that button be doing some other regular action because it's just replacing the image. So you don't think you can... I don't think I can emotionally handle switching from OBS and PC to Mac and Ecamm, or maybe it won't be that bad. I fear it will be exhausting. Do you know what? I actually liken switching to Ecamm from OBS as the same as switching from PC to Mac, which is I used a PC for years and sort of grew up on PC and always felt like, I knew it inside and out and it was the way to do things. And it was only when I got a Mac, when was it, 16, 17 years ago? And it was around the time of Vista, if you went through the Vista experience, that I switched to Mac. And I just couldn't believe how much more logical things seemed on the Mac than they did on the PC. So I was coming from a PC side, thought everything was all fine. And then it was like, oh, there's a much better and simpler way of doing this all. And it was kind of the same experience I had when I was using OBS, to be honest. I went through the, trying to do everything that I was wanting to do with OBS. And then just happened to see Doc Rock on Mac Break Weekly, a podcast that I watch. And he just sort of mentioned it. And I was having some particular issue with OBS at the time. And I thought, oh, I'll just give this a go. And I couldn't believe how much more intuitive, to my mind, it was. And I appreciate everyone sort of thinks differently. So it's not going to be the same for everyone, obviously. But for me, I found it actually, apart from like the initial thing of it's something different, you've got to learn something different, which I enjoy doing anyway. But apart from the initial hurdle of getting over it being a different, it was all much more logical. So, yeah, I'm not not saying you should, but it's certainly not as bad as you think in terms of getting over any hurdle or anything like that. So the NAND lights, no, unfortunately, go back to the lighting. No, they don't hook up with HomeKit. So no, they've got their own sort of third-party app. Coming back to lighting, because that's how I got onto that. Thank you for the reminder as well. Somebody was asking about lighting. If you use Philips Hue lights, then there's a Philips Hue plugin for Stream Deck. You can control that all from there. If you use obviously Elgato lights, they're made by the same people who make the Stream Deck. And there's another whole thing, which is, what's it called now? There's a whole lighting setup. I forget the name of the plugin now. And you can do all sorts of funky stuff with that, which is like for third-party lights. I'm forgetting what it is now, but there's a number of different lighting control apps in there. Hey, Rich, great to see you. I'm not sure what the spooky refers to, but I've lost the thread. Controlling aperture lights with. Thanks. I'm glad you liked the thing. And yeah, but Keyboard Maestro. Once you've got it, you'll find loads of uses for it. Well, no, I can't think of a good one for changing the tiles and icons on Stream Deck buttons just yet. But it's one of those things that once I know that the possibility is there, that when something pops up, I'll just know that that's the use for it. Anyway, let's move on, because I did have some other apps that I wanted to cover. And as you can see, I've just scratched the surface of basically we've talked about 3 different macros. We've talked about the click on found image, clicking on something in a menu item, and one other, sending a keystroke to a thing. So we've only talked about 3 different macros that, different actions that you can do with Keyboard Maestro, and there are so many more than that. I do just want to touch on these other apps that I talked about that that I use with Keyboard Maestro. So I was just missing this comment here from Melvin. Any suggestions on integrating automation into your workflow so you stop touching your keyboard? Well, yeah, I mean, it is replicating those. I think if that's where you're going with this, it is thinking about these things that you have sort of automated, where you can press a Stream Deck button and it sort of eliminates you having to do the stuff for you. But speaking of the keyboard, the next one would be what's it called? Text Expander. So many of them. Text Expander is a great one for just having little snippets of text that you type that then expand into much bigger bodies of text. So I use it all the time for things like proposals, quotations, things like that. Maybe just even small things like URLs, email addresses, and so on. So let me just bring Text Expander up, and I'll just give you a quick demo of what this does. Date strings as well. It's really good at. I'm just going to bring up, I did a whole video on Keyboard Maestro probably over a year ago now, so I've still actually got the demo set of snippets for that. So I will just mention those again because conscious of time. And as I say, all of these, I could do hours on all of these different apps. And in fact, that's what the, the automation masterclass will be, to be honest. But here you've got text expander, and you can create a little snippet in here. So if I create a new snippet, I could say, hello, how are you? So that is what I want it to say. And you could also make this as long or as short as you want. So maybe I want to, there we go. Say I want to type out this. You can give it a label. So maybe hello, how are you? And then we can give it an abbreviation. So I might just type hello, comma, comma. I actually use the comma, comma as the thing to sort of trigger it quite a lot because it's something that I'm never normally going to type. So it will be some short little word, and then I'll use that double comma afterwards as just a way to trigger it. So if I come into here now, if I was to just type in hello, comma, comma, if I type hello right, it's a very tricky word to spell, that is. Hello, comma, comma. You'll see that that's expanded that text out to all of that. And so it's just great for expanding things out like email addresses. If you're something you type all the time, like your email address or a URL, I've got a whole series of ones for affiliate links. So affiliate links for products that I might mention. I've got to add in a few more there in actual fact, but and various other different things. You can group these snippets together. So I have them grouped by different sort of business interests that I've got down on this side in different groupings. Mistyped words. I often find that like when I'm typing something, especially if it's something that's capitalized, I will inadvertently capitalize the second letter as well. So like, for example, if I type YouTube really fast, it's usually the second one or something like that. So there you go. Because I've held the shift down and I'm typing too quickly and not released it, that is basically not looking right. So it's got all the wrong characters. If you find yourself doing those things regularly, then what you can do is just come in here, type in the abbreviation being the way that you misspell it, but then actually just correct the spelling in here. Like that. And so then if I was to type and misspell YouTube again in that way that I just did, capital Y-O-U-T-U-B-E, then it would, if I've got the right trigger, I've misspelled my misspelling. Let me try that again. You'll get the idea though. I tell you what it is. It's auto-correcting for me. That's what it is. The Mac is auto-correcting it. Bad example, but you get the idea though. It can correct commonly misspelled words that you misspell. Let's try this once again just to prove the point. There we go. So it's corrected my miscapitalization. It's really great though for adding in other information. So for example, my Q&A, when I do my weekly Q&A as part of my academy, this is one I just set up yesterday. I basically do 2 sessions. So for me, they're Wednesday morning at 5 a.m. and Wednesday afternoon at 5 a.m. So this is for members of my Take One Tech Academy in the premium level or above. So we have a weekly Q&A, but I want to be able to label the file. So if I just type QA2, then it gives me the date stamp of this thing that I want to, the file. So it puts the date in reverse order. So there's the year, the month, the day, Q&A session 2. If I type just QA1, then it expands that to be that. And it means that I've always got a unique date stamp there. And the way that I did that was you can add different parameters into Keyboard Maestro as well. So we've typed in YouTube there, but you can also come here and add date things. So I can add in the year, hyphen, maybe the month, then the day. And you can see the different ways it can be formatted. It could literally be the actual day name. And I'm just going to change this to just a little testing there. So then if I was to type this, you can see that that's basically written out this format. So it says YouTube, the year, the month, the day, and then it's written the day. Obviously, you can see I could have done with putting spaces and hyphens and stuff like that in there, but you can just go in and format that. But it's a way that you can bring those things in. I also use it for my file naming. So I want a completely unique string to the starts of files. So in that case, I have actually day, month, day, sorry, year, month, day, and then I also add in the hours, minutes, and seconds, and that gives me a completely unique date stamp then that I use for many things. You can also have it pop up with options for you. So, and you can do calendar maths. So like add days. So you could say, put in a date 5 days from now. So maybe you're sending out a proposal or something and saying this is valid until, whenever it is. And then it would just automatically put 30 days in the future or whatever. That's a way that you might want to do that. You've also got, you can simulate pressing keystrokes in here as well. So one of them would be for here. I've got one here that was, if you wanted to send some information in a clipboard from a clipboard message, you can have it paste that in, for example. So this was an example that I did where, let's say you want to send an email to somebody and they've sent your email address and you're going to follow up with some information. Then you could start by basically hitting the clipboard. So you could open up your mail, put your cursor into the the to field. Then it's going to paste in the contents of the clipboard, which was their email address. It's going to press tab twice. So that goes from the to address down to the subject. Then here is the company info you requested. So that's going to go in the subject line. Then it's going to press tab and then it says hi. And this one here is actually a pop-up field. So that is going to basically pop up on screen where you can then type something in. So this one, if I show you what this actually looks like in practice, if I just type in X, what it's done then is, if this was in an email, I've just done it in a text file. If it was in an email, it would have put in their email address, put in that as the subject, and then it's prompting me for the name. I'll sending myself an email, and if I click on enter now, it's put in all of that text. So you can use it to automate that process of even just sending emails. Now, in actual fact, what this does is when I use this, I actually have a Keyboard Maestro macro that does the first step of opening up the email client and starting a new email. And then it triggers this text expander snippet to then go and do this. Well, not this particular one, but these types of things. So I have a whole series of them that are for different emails that I want to send and things like that. So using text expander with Keyboard Maestro is a real sort of good combination, because technically I could do all of this in Keyboard Maestro itself, but because this is the one thing that this is intended for, it just does it really, really well. The other thing that you can do in keyboard with text expander, sorry, getting my names confused here, is you can also have it do things like these fill-ins. So this is where you can put in a single line text field, which is that one that we've just looked at. So that there is the name is a single line text field. But you can also have it give you a pop-up menu. And so here you can just type in the name of the field. Maybe it's email address. Maybe you want to give somebody like a choice of, or you want to choose which email address they should reply to. Email 1, email 2. You can add in all of these different options. Let's just put it in an example so you'll see what this looks like. And obviously you would be typing in actual email addresses here. Click on OK. So now if I run this one, what it's done is it's given me the pop-up, and now I can choose which one of those ones I want to use out of that list. And then click on OK. And now it's actually, it's a bit of a bad example, but you've seen the principle, hopefully. There it's inputted that thing that we just selected. So it's a way for you to create a single text expander snippet that then prompts you for some information before it actually goes and completes it. And as I say, it can be that sort of multi-choice thing there that we just looked at, the pop-up menu, multi-line text field if you need to be able to paste in more stuff. So yeah, lots of different options in there as well. And then you can add in tabs and different things like that as well. So that is a text expander. As I say, it does one thing, but it does it really well. And being able to combine using it with clipboard content that you've copied, those options that you have, it works really well as a sort of an accompaniment to Keyboard Maestro, or rather, Keyboard Maestro is a great accompaniment to it. So Robert is asking, do the icon packs come with setup instructions? They do actually, because each one of them came out of a YouTube video that I created. So there's a video with each one that explains. Actually, the video that comes with each one explains how to do it yourself as well. But then the icon packs are there as, you know, if you want to save yourself the hour or whatever it's going to take to set it all up, then that's what the keyboard the things are there for. And the link to the video is on the checkout page or the. Let me just show you. It's probably easier, isn't it, to answer your question, Robert? Where are we here? So let me go to the store. So if I go to this one here, this is a YouTube player icon pack, and I click on this, then you will see that it's got the icon pack, and then when you download the icon pack, you will have a link in there to the YouTube video that is associated with it, and that shows you how to set it all up. But yeah, it sort of walks you through the process. Can text expander be used to save files that you normally repeat? Text expander doesn't do any saving of files. You could link that in with Keyboard Maestro and have some text expansion and then saving files that way. All text expander does is literally just expand the text. So it puts in the text wherever you're using it for, wherever you're doing it. So no, it doesn't actually do the saving itself. I'm glad you like the channel. Thank you very much. And yeah, the Stream Deck, I can't stress enough what an amazing productivity tool the Stream Deck is. And I'm so pleased that I started doing my video content and live streaming, because that's what allowed me to discover the Stream Deck. And it actually, for me, it gave Keyboard Maestro a new lease of life for me as well. I've been using Keyboard Maestro for I guess about 16 years, or almost as long as I've been using the Mac, maybe 14 or 15 years perhaps. But yeah, having keyboard shortcuts as triggers, which is what Keyboard Maestro originated from, the ability to really quickly create them now and have them associated with Stream Deck somehow makes it a lot more accessible. And there isn't that thing of having to remember the new keyboard shortcuts as much, because you've got a dedicated button for it. So yeah, it's a great pairing, and Ecamm's awesome too. As you've probably gathered, I'm a bit of a fanboy. So talking about switching to Mac, yeah, there's slightly different keyboard characters and stuff like that, but you soon get used to it. It's funny actually, but my wife is just trading and is on a PC, and so I always find when I go and I have to do anything on her computer, I'm always sort of lost in the reverse way. So like all the things that I've sort of forgotten about PC haven't necessarily come flooding back. I see what you mean. Can text expander be used to save files that you normally repeat, like when you go to save its file name? So that is exactly how I use it, Melvin. In fact, that little example that I just gave of the thing from like the Q&A file name. So it does work. Yeah, when you are editing a file name, you can have it paste in there. So it works anywhere where you type. It will expand the text. So that could be editing a file name, or when you go to save files. Yeah, totally it would. Sorry, I misunderstood the original question there, but yeah, it totally does that. And I use it like that all the time. For date strings as well. So all of my files tend to have, I can show you, all of my files tend to have a date string at the beginning. And I just have DDD, and it automatically puts in it's just off the bottom there. It automatically puts in a date string. So with the year, the month, and the day, and a hyphen. So the majority of my files actually start with a date string. or they've got a date string in them somewhere. Sometimes they start with never mind. Sometimes they start with these. I've got all these little text codes. So you'll notice that all of my things are sorted like this. So there's all these 4-digit codes that are basically sorting out the different use cases that I have and different things. So I use a system of 4-letter codes and date strings to sort stuff out. That's a whole nother that's a whole nother 2-hour stream. So that is Keyboard Maestro. That is Text Expander, though. The other one that I want to talk about, which is sort of the question that prompted me to do this live stream as well, is about Moom. And I've talked about opening and closing different windows. Moom is the application that I use for positioning windows in my screen. And I'll give you a quick demonstration of this because there's a number of ways that you can use Moom. So let me just move some of these comments out of the way. Or actually, that one will probably work well as an example. Let me see if will this share the correct screen with you? Right, so you can see this this screen here, and I've got all these different windows in different places, deliberately all messed up. So Moom is an application that sits in your menu bar. So it's up here somewhere. Where is it? It's maybe hiding in here. There it is, that one. And there are some settings up there in the menu bar, but there's also the Moom preferences. Now, let me just get the Moom preferences up as well. What Moom does is a couple of things. First of all, you can split your screen up into like a grid. And then if I click on this little green icon at the top here, then instead of it maximizing the window, what I can actually have it do, now it seems like is it not going to do it while I'm sharing? That would be typical, wouldn't it? It's not going to do it while I'm sharing. Hang on a second. Let me come back out of that. No, it is. So when I clicked in that little box, you can see that I'm highlighting a part of the screen. So I can choose where exactly I want to place this window. Now, what it means is, because I've got this grid, it means I can create layouts of things on my screen that are like here's Hazel, which I'll come to later. If I click on that one, you can make things sort of really neatly arranged on your screen. Let's put Keyboard Maestro over here. So I'm just going to click in there. And so because I've got this sort of grid pattern on my screen, I can just easily lay things out so that they are in a sort of neat grid rather than having to manually, drag the corner of the window and put it, exactly where I want it. So that's one thing that Hazel does. The other thing that Hazel does, though, is you can set up predefined locations on the screen. And if I hold in here, oh, thank you very much for the coffees. I do appreciate that. Thank you very much. Much appreciated there. I think it just missed the thing that popped up then, but thanks very much. I was in live demo mode, so it didn't come on the screen, but I do appreciate that. Thanks so much. Let me come back to here a second. Where was I? So the other thing you can do, though, is you can save predefined positions on the screen. So I've actually got some already set up. So if I click on this button, for example, it's automatically going to put that in that top corner because that is a predefined position I've got. I've got another one which is top center. I've got another one which is the top right. Whoops. Now, I'm accessing these from this little menu here, but you can also assign keyboard shortcuts to these as well. So I've got keyboard shortcut, which is Command Option Shift, Control Option Shift, Control Option Command 2, 1, and so on. So I can use those keyboard shortcuts to basically move that thing around the screen. What I've done is I've also got those as Stream Deck buttons. You can't activate them from Stream Deck using the Keyboard Maestro menu command, but you can just have it trigger the keystroke in Stream Deck. So there's a button in Stream Deck. Maybe I just need to quickly show that just so that you can see where it is. If I go to Stream Deck, then here we're in this plugin. Let me just get this particular comment off there. It's from before. So in Stream Deck, what I can do is if I go to System and then Hotkey. So if I assign a hotkey, which was Control Option Command 1, that would now trigger the thing to put the window in that position. Hopefully this is making sense. Let me come back over here and I'll share this whole thing. So now if I press that button on my Stream Deck that I've just created, whilst I've got this Keyboard Maestro window activated, it's going to put it in that position. So you can have effectively a whole series of buttons on your Stream Deck which are related to a particular position on your screen. And then as you're working, if you just want to put this window up there, this other window over in another place, as you're clicking through windows, you can just press the Stream Deck button to throw it into that particular area of the screen. So I use that all the time with Keyboard Maestro, with Moom. Sorry for getting all the names confused. Too many productivity apps. I use that all the time for organizing stuff. But the other great one, though, with Moom is this idea of snapshots. So let's say that whenever I am live streaming, I have all of these windows here, like this. And I want to make sure that every time I live stream, they're all in these different positions. And this could be for whatever particular work mode you happen to be in. So what you can do then is you can go into Moom, and then you've got this option here, right click, save window layout as snapshot. If I save that as a snapshot, and then you can give it a keyboard shortcut as well, and you can give it a name. So I'll give it a name as test, as always. I've got so many things called test on my computer. And then I'll just click on update. Oh, I don't need to update it actually because nothing's changed. Right. So what this does though is, and bear in mind, as I say, you can give it a keyboard shortcut. So now let's say I've just come into my computer. I've opened up these windows. Maybe they've been in a different place because I've been doing something else and I've got a different layout that I use for that. What Moom does is if I come into the Moom menu or hit the keyboard shortcut, what you'll see is, if I can get it up, where's it gone? There we go. In here. Moom. And we should see down here, this is that test that I've just set up. So if I hit test, it's going to move all of those windows. And of course it doesn't. Oh yeah, there we go. It's just a bit slow. That was weird. It's going to move all those windows back into the position that they were in. So that's the way that you can use Moom then to have your setup correct for you whenever you are, in a particular work mode. So I talked before about, I've got different windows open for live streaming versus recording versus Zoom. Obviously different stuff when I'm working on other stuff. The example of when I upload videos to YouTube, I've not done that for a while actually. I've been live streaming and creating course content, but that workflow though of doing that is, having Moom just put everything where it needs to be. I use Keyboard Maestro to open up apps. So I told you at the beginning about how you can just open apps with Stream Deck itself. But I tend to just do it all with Keyboard Maestro because then it's doing everything all together and it's controlling it all from that macro. So it might be in Ecamm Live, for example, switching profile in Ecamm from my recording profile. I've got another one for, course content. Maybe it's a different profile for that. So Keyboard Maestro would actually switch my Ecamm profile. It would open up all the different apps that I need to have open for whatever it is I'm doing. It would then trigger Moom to put all of the things in the place that I need them to be on the screen for that particular mode of work or whatever you want to call it. It's a really, really powerful app. Now, Jeff was saying just before, and I wanted to just have a quick look. This might be something for me to do after, but there is a couple of settings in Moom that you need to be aware of, and I'm not sure if this is specifically Jeff's issue, but we'll take a little look. If I come into the Moom settings again, and I'll just share this screen once I've opened it up. In fact, let's put it over here, and I'll share this screen instead. So this is Moom is in the menu bar, but then you open up the Moom preferences. There's a couple of options here. So launch automatically at login. So I have it doing that because I just want it to always be open. Show preferences on launch. I don't do that because I don't need to see the preferences all the time. Run as menu bar item, or standard would be in the dock, or faceless, as in it's just working in the background. I have it in the menu bar just because I want to be able to access things like this from the menu bar. Next along is mouse. Pop-up controls when hovering over a zoom button. That specifically is this thing of when you hover over the, it's not going to work on that one. Let me bring up a different window. When you hover over this window here, which is called the zoom window, in order to get those things to pop up, you just need to make sure that this one is checked. So in the mouse section, pop-up controls when hovering over a zoom button. That's the one to have selected there. And then you've got the option of show Moom controls or standard OS zoom button menu. So you need to just make sure that, you've got that one selected and also show Moom controls. And then when you hover over this little button here, the little green button, this is what gives you access to. These are shortcuts basically to snap to the left, to the right, to the top, to the bottom, or full screen. Here is where you can also access all of your preset locations. And then this one here is where you can basically click and sort of select exactly where on the screen you want that window to go to. Then enable full screen, enable access to custom controls, show on hover. So the custom controls was those ones that I've just mentioned. Bring Moomed windows to the front automatically. It makes sense. If I'm doing anything where I'm arranging stuff with Moom, I do want it to be at the front. And then you've got keyboard. So you've got a keyboard control hotkey. I don't have a global hotkey for Moom because I have hotkeys for all of the things that I want it to do. So I haven't used that. But then you can come into, and just one other incidentally, where I click on here, and I mentioned that it's kind of like the screen's split into a grid. Well, the grid size is dictated here. So enable the grid with, I've got it split into 12 by 12. I've got quite a large monitor. It's like 43 inches. So having it split up into so many different pieces makes sense to me. But if you've got a smaller monitor, then it might just be like even just a 2x3 grid or something if you only want those few little places to put stuff in. But that's why I've got quite a lot of different divisions on it. But then you've got custom, and this is where you can basically set keyboard shortcuts for all of your different things. So you can see here a few of the different arrangements that I have. On my large monitor, I want to be able to have something down the center. Incidentally, I was talking to someone about this in the academy the other day. One of the things I love about having a regular aspect ratio, and just to show what it looks like. So this monitor here is 43 inch, but it's still a 16 by 9. And it's 4K. But what that means is I'm not a fan of the ultra wide monitors because, okay, it's really wide, but then what happens if you want to see something that's like a document? So I like the fact that this is a regular aspect ratio monitor because it means that sometimes I might have a big document down the side and then a few like small windows like over here. Or I might have, one big wide Excel file along the bottom and then some smaller reference material up along the top. And so that's what basically I've done then with these divisions. I've basically got different areas of the screen that I can put things using these shortcuts, and you can see kind of how I've split it up depending on what it is I'm doing. But then down below, I've also got, or wherever they are, maybe up at the top, I've got all the different snapshots and things like that. So one for Zoom, new live stream, Zoom, so on. So these are different layouts that I've got, and they've all got a keyboard shortcut associated with them that then is triggered by the Stream Deck. So I absolutely love Moom. I hope we'll have to see if that has solved Jeff's issue though in terms of the thing not appearing. But if you're not seeing the little control here, which is a really useful one, then just to reiterate, that is to check in here that you've got pop-up controls on. I don't have this snap to edges and corners because I've just got all my predefined positions. So that is Moom. That is another one then that I use, in conjunction with Keyboard Maestro. And as part of my Keyboard Maestro macros, I'll trigger the Moom shortcut as well, so that it opens everything, does everything it needs to do, and then puts everything where it needs to be. The final one that I mentioned is that can also do things that Keyboard Maestro can do, is called Hazel. And Hazel is for managing files within folders. And in fact, the way that it works is you set a folder that you want it to watch, and then it performs various actions based on that folder. So, for example, here, and you can split these down into groups as well. When I record my podcast, I use Auphonic, which is a thing that basically sorts out audio issues. It runs through the audio and cleans it all up and adjusts levels and things like that. So what I have is a couple of things here. This one, and just to sort of explain the process, it's got this similar sort of flow to Keyboard Maestro in terms of you've got your groups. In this case, they're called folders. You've then got your macros, which in this case are called rules. And then you've got the actions that are going to be performed on it. So if I've got here this folder that I'm looking at, and the folder here is specifically the folder on your computer. So that's how things are grouped. They're grouped by the actual folder that these actions are performing on. So here I've got one called initial edit. I could add a new rule here, and you can say, basically, it's a bit like Keyboard Maestro as well. If any of the following conditions are met. So you could say, like, if the name is whatever, or maybe if the name starts with or does not contain, if the name matches something, then do the following thing. So this is a bit like the trigger part of Keyboard Maestro, and these are the actions. But the actions are all basically file and folder related. So you might want to rename something, you might want to move it, add tags to it, archive it, import it into music or photos, run a shortcut, run AppleScript, and so on. So you can have it, though, that if I look at the triggers again, maybe you can look for source URL, for example. So one that I have is every time I download something from Adobe stock, if I'm on the Adobe website and I download the whatever it is, the stock art or whatever, it goes to my downloads folder. Well, I have a Hazel action that looks at the downloads folder, and the condition is if the source URL or address contains Adobe, then move it to my Adobe stock folder. So it means that I don't have to go and select the folder I want to download to. I just click it and it goes to downloads, but then it will move it from there to my Adobe stock folder. Another one is I use my desktop on my computer like a desktop, hence the name. So what it means is that when I'm working during the day, I'll often just throw stuff up on the desktop that I'm using, but then I want the desktop to be cleared away at the end of the day. And so Hazel does that for me and files things where they need to be. I also use it for screenshots. By default, a screenshot will go onto my desktop. If I'm taking a screenshot, there's obviously some reason I want it. So I want it to stay on my desktop for the day. But then at the end of the day, I have it moved into a screenshots folder. But I don't just want this screenshots folder to sort of get completely overwhelmed and blown up over the years. So at the end of 2 weeks, it looks for one of the conditions you can have is where is it now? The date created. So if I go to date created, is not in the last 2 days, then delete it. So I have it watching my screenshots folder. So after it's moved stuff from the desktop at the end of the day, it moves it into another little folder. And that's just in case I do actually need to go back and get it, the following day or a couple of days later, whatever. But then if it's not used within a few days, then it removes it from there and permanently deletes it. So there's things you can do in terms of that. And by the way, you can stack all these up. So you might want to say the name is so-and-so, the not uploaded in the last 2 days, the source has come from wherever. So you can stack all of these different things to make lots of different rules. So one of them I have for Auphonic, just to come back to that example, is, let's just get rid of the changes on this one. Basically, when I save my podcast and I do my initial edit of it, because the video podcast, I have to sort of drop in a little ad in the middle of it, but then I'll export it. And so when the file goes into the export, it moves it to this Dropbox folder called Auphonic. Now, I've got Auphonic set up. It's all done in the cloud, but then I have it watching a Dropbox folder. So it watches this one. So it then grabs that file that's just been moved to that Dropbox folder, processes it in Auphonic's servers, and then Auphonic puts it into another Dropbox folder, which happens to be this one called whatever the name of the folder is. I can't see the name. Auphonic results. But actually what it puts in there is it puts the processed file. It also puts a solo of the guest track. and it also does some other things. So I have this series of actions happen as soon as the files get dropped in here. It basically looks for the MP3 file, which is the audio one, and it sorts that and moves it into a particular folder. The guest solo, it takes that folder, that file, and it moves it somewhere else. The video file, it moves that somewhere else. And then finally, this audio file, it moves that somewhere else as well. So this is my way of basically sorting these things out, so that rather than just having Auphonic dump in all of these files in one place, I'm having it dump them in one place, but then Hazel is then sorting it so that I've got a folder then that is all of my movie files, a folder that's all of my MP3 files, you know, for the MP4 for the video and so on, and it is doing all the sorting. This is where Hazel is really great, is for doing all of these kind of sorting things that you ordinarily would have to do manually or potentially might not do, and then end up having a headache with a load of unsorted files and folders in your computer. So it's a really simple application in terms of that's all it does. It just watches a folder and then performs actions. The thing to look for as well is the sorting. That thing of having a time delay on it is really useful. So the thing that I mentioned about sorting my Adobe stock images, for example, I don't want it to just do it automatically. I like to be able to just click on my downloads folder and be able to get to anything that I've literally just downloaded, but to have it then go and sort it, you know, at the end of the day or within 48 hours or whatever. So that's a really useful little thing to have on there. Let me just come back. I've just moved the chat out of the way a little bit, so I might have missed something. Okie dokie. Jeff's just saying bye-bye. It's middle of the night there. Thanks for stopping by the Discord, Jeff. Let me come back to here, though. So let's have a look where we are. Just coming back to Moom then, Melvin saying, can Moom move non-window based items apps into place, like the little Stream Deck pedal window that shows the pedal display? It does move that one, yes, because it is still technically a window. I just wanted to do a demo of that, but as I mentioned at the beginning, my Stream Deck pedals died, so it means I haven't got that little window open. But it does move that one, I'm fairly sure, because although you might think it's not a window, it is technically a window. So I think it does move it. One thing that Moom, I don't think does do, which only came to light just the other day, talking to somebody in the academy as well, was it can move stuff over multiple desktops. So I've got 4 screens, and it will move stuff from one to the other. But if you're someone who uses desktop spaces on the Mac, like where you can literally have, you know, you can press the hotkey and it moves over to a completely separate display. Or if you use things full screen, maybe you have like, you know, full screen of different apps, then I don't think that Moon will put stuff like on a screen that you effectively can't see. It's a bit like if you want to do screen sharing in Zoom or in Ecamm, and you want to share like one of those other desktops, you know, like when you can press expose and it will show you all your different desktops, and you could have like one screen but with 5 different desktops. I don't think that Moon will place things on those other screens. It's only what you can physically see is what I gather. I don't use those myself. I just add more displays. But I understand that is the case. That's just one little caveat. If you do use those sort of virtual screens, it's only going to manage stuff on the screen that you are actually on, I think. Thanks very much. I'm glad you like the interviews. I've got to record another batch of those. They were supposed to be weekly, but I recorded a batch of them. I've still got some more to release. But just since New Year, I shifted my focus a little bit, so I've got to get back to that. I've got a list of new interviewees to get on, so I'll be back to that shortly. Thank you very much. I appreciate the comment there. I'm glad you found it useful, and thank you very much. Much appreciated. As I say, with all of this productivity stuff, though, I do really feel like I'm barely scratching the surface, and this is why it's taken so long. I've been talking about making my productivity or automation productivity masterclass for Over a year, but almost since I started the channel. Incidentally, the channel was originally going to be more about like productivity apps and automation apps, and then it just happened to be that I discovered Ecamm and Stream Deck as a way to make the content, and then I fell in love with those, and that's the channel then morphed into being more about the actual those tools than about the apps themselves. I've been going for 2 hours now, though, and I don't want to keep everyone all day. I could literally talk about this for the rest of the day, but I will have to wrap it up. But if anybody is interested in finding out more, then do feel free. Oh, thank you very much. Glenda has renewed her membership. I think that's automatic, that one is. But thank you very much, Glenda, if you are watching. So right on cue. You can check out channel memberships just down below this video as well. All of the auto renews are going through, obviously. So thank you very much, Pierre, as well, for your continued support. And yeah, if you want to find out more about the courses, then go to takeonetech.io/academy. You can find out all the courses that you can get. That's basically a subscription that gives you access to all of the courses that I create, and also the weekly Q&As you can get in there as well. So 2 options of time per week for that. But that's where you can just come in and ask any questions that you've got in a face-to-face manner, in actually in Discord, a bit like a Zoom call in there, and that will give you access to all of the courses as they go forward as well. I'll still be offering courses on a standalone basis as well. So as soon as they're out, feel free to check them out, and you can go to my website takeonetech.io if you just want to be kept up to date with updates as soon as those new things come out. Then you can just register to join the mailing list over there. Thanks. The cost of each app. The cost of each app, let me just figure that out, because they are basically, just one second, Melvin, thank you very much for reminding me. These are, I talk about Setapp a lot on my channel as well, which is a great thing for giving access to a whole series of useful Mac apps, but these are all kind of standalone, and they're also not subscriptions. I had somebody that was talking about subscriptions and how they don't like the whole subscription model, but these are nearly all just a one-off payment. So let's have a look. Moom, that's unbelievable. Moom is $10. I didn't even realize that. I've been using it so long. Okay, I'm dropping the links in, and I'm just looking. Moom is $10. If that doesn't save you $10 within the first week of time of setting up your screen, I don't know. I feel like I want to send them money now. That's ridiculous. $10 for Moom. Okay, let's have a look at Hazel. I think Hazel is it around $50 or something? Oh, no, not Hazel. Keyboard Maestro is around $50. Let's have a look at Noodlesoft. Where is it? Here. So I could be showing you this as well, couldn't I? Hazel is $42 for the regular Family Pack or Hazel 5 upgrade if you're upgrading from a previous version. So $42 essentially. Let's stick to the base prices. Keyboard Maestro is, let's go to here. Keyboard Maestro. This is, what is it? $36 or $38 plus tax, depending on where you are. About $40. That's another one. I mean, it's not with so many businesses having a subscription model these days. Yeah, this is just a flat fee, and I'm kind of staggered, to be honest, by the value that I've had out of it. I'm actually feeling guilty now from for all of the value that I've had out of these. Let's look at Text Expander, because that was the other one. If these things do not provide the value, do not save you more in your time than these cost, yeah, I don't know what to say. And a Text Expander is a subscription, $3.33 per month, $4.16 a month. And the Text Expander, another one. One thing I like about Text Expander is you can go in and it will give you like a monthly report of how much time you've saved. You put in your typing speed. If you're expanding things like your email address or, your name that are really short snippets, then it's going to take a while to sort of, save yourself that much time. But when you're using it for like producing full proposals, dropping, the name of the person in and maybe some date information or something, and then it's just going, putting out all of this text that otherwise you would have had to either type or cut and paste. You'll see Text Expander will tell you how many hours you've saved that month. And so, yeah, for me, although this one is a subscription model, it's still just a total no-brainer. And if you do it up front for the month, it's whatever it is, $39 for a year of it. Whereas all of the others that we've just looked at there are all just one-off payments. And yeah, like I say, they should pay for themselves within a week, frankly, in terms of once you start using them for, automating your tasks, depending on the your time cost, if you want to factor that in. Anyway, I hope that has been useful. If you've got any questions about anything that I've covered today, then do feel free to drop me a message, or also feel free to join the Discord, takeonetech.io/family, and you can come in there. Don't worry if you're not familiar with Discord. I've got a video explaining how to use it, and it's basically a great resource for information. So if you've got any specific questions about anything that I've covered in today, actually that's the best place to go and drop those questions. Thanks a lot for watching, and thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you again next time. And for those watching on the replay, I will try to go and put some more automation-based stuff over on the right-hand side. Saw some new renewals come up just during the last 10 minutes, so thanks to them, and of course everyone else who is a channel member. Really appreciate your support and encouragement. Have a great day, everyone. See you next time.